today's video, I am going to be talking about community-led brands, primarily built off of Instagram and kind of what all that entails. Obviously, I've talked about founder-led brands in the past, but today I really want to talk about some community-led brands and also just really look at some like archive pages that went on to be massive brands on Instagram and just e-commerce in general. So yeah, I'm just going to kind of go over all of that and then kind of what we can learn from all of that. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, starting off, I want to take a look at the brand Hidden New York. You might be familiar, honestly. They have close to 3 million followers now, and they've been around for maybe 6, 7, 8 years. And so the first thing we're going to note is we don't even know who the founder of this page is. It's literally just a page built on Instagram that just shows pop culture, events, things that are happening, things that happened in the past, inspiration, just a little bit of everything. Like your typical like mood board page. They're kind of one of like the founding fathers of the Instagram like archive mood board kind of pages. So yeah, they did this for years without like cashing on any of they built up the audience. The audience was at a good number for a while, and they didn't really cash in on it until they had gotten into such a big number that the community was built. So many people loved the page. They're sharing it with their friends and whatnot, and so eventually they went on to create a brand and have absolutely crushed it. I don't know if they have any current product available. Okay, so cool. They are. Yeah, so they're currently doing this event for like Christmas time where they have a bunch of different collaborations. But the first thing I want to talk about, kind of like what we talked about in the previous video, or one of the previous videos, was building your audience before you go to market essentially for your brand. So the first way we looked at it was for founders to blow up on Instagram or TikTok via like Reels or again TikTok, talking about whether that's like lifestyle or just like things they're into and kind of building that brand. So we took a look at a couple people like, so again, we have someone like Marcus Milian who blew up off of lifestyle content and bit of fashion advice and getting fit because he's big into running, and then he went on to build a brand that's kind of in that space. But here we're looking at just a brand built off of culture, brought a lot of people together, and then went on to start to sell clothes. And one thing to note about them too is they didn't just like make some generic like tees and put their logo on it. They've really done like a very good job from the product side of creating very unique and interesting pieces. They do all kinds of like pizza cutters. Of course, they have their simple logo, which is also really smart. They created a very simple logo, just a circle with a small H for hidden, and then have a bunch of different garments like that for people that want to have their more like modest, simple stuff. Then they have this crazy stuff like this Boro quilted jacket for $1,500. Just a lot of very good and cool product that's very unique. Probably a lot better than a lot of other brands. They also went crazy on these socks for a while. Like these were a hot commodity. Were constantly selling out. I remember buying a pair and was being happy because they sold out within like 30 seconds. So yeah, first brand, Hidden New York. Awesome community built off of them. And so again, the thing to note here is that you want to think about how you can build your audience before you go to market, because that's just going to be the best way to go about it before, instead of just going straight to market and selling whatever it is you want to do. Building that audience beforehand is going to make your life a lot easier. So one way to do it is through building like a community. Obviously an archive page isn't for everyone. So I'll get into that later of how you can do that in a non-archive page kind of way. But without further ado, I will get into the next one. That is a plastic plant. Kind of similar in a bit of like the shadows of Hidden New York. A plastic plant is probably like one of the next biggest archive pages out there. And again, very similar concept. I know the founders posted about it a couple times where just like consistency of posting about very unique things. He claims that he's on like, Instagram and like the phone and whatnot for like 14, 15 hours a day. Like this is their full-time job of just tapping into culturally relevant things and talking about them, and also doing like inspiration and like just all kinds of like things again with culture to do, whether that's like music artists or like things that are happening in the news in our current country. Yeah, all kinds of stuff. And then he went on to start a brand, a plastic plant, and he's got a bit more simple clothes. So plant clothes. I consider his to be maybe a little bit more simplistic, but he's done some also cool collaborations like with Clot. He did that collab. Again, he was kind of actually that's fake, but yeah. Some cool pieces like this, a little more simple. Again, very successful, and that, where's that at? And I believe that is the owner right there. So again, Eco's faceless. You can build a brand without ever having anyone like know about you and be very successful. So next one I took a look at take a look at is one more kind of similar page. This is Undercover Osh. Again, same concept, consistency, building a page through just culture and being consistent. And I will say, this whole kind of like mood board archive thing is a bit oversaturated now. You have a million other pages that are much smaller trying to do a similar thing to build an audience to then go on to sell them something. So my advice isn't really to just go out there and try and do this exact thing, but rather think about what it is you're trying to sell and what kind of like topics or niche you're kind of tapping into and will be relevant to the audience and build the audience within that very specific thing that is. So again, did a very good job of building this page, and then he went on to do this Osh FC, which is just like the brand, like the clothing side of it. And they also, or he does like really, really nice quality garments. It's not really focused on like graphic tees or things of that nature, but really just doing like smaller quantity, very high quality and intentionality with the product itself, from the tags to the hardware, the custom labels. Just very, very good product in my opinion. And yeah, again, just a really good example. Again, like even this custom like did a collab with Carter Research on this cardigan. Love this, awesome pieces, awesome brand. So the next one I think will be a little bit more relevant to you guys in terms of like how to build that niche within like whatever it is you're trying to sell. So I have this really cool example called Rubashka. You've probably never heard of them. Pretty smaller brand, not well known. And their whole thing is Cold War history and kind of tapping into that realm. That's what like the founder, whoever is like really big on. So they do all this type of content about like artwork and news and old commercials and videos from like the Cold War and like times at Russia and all kinds of things. Very interesting. Very interesting page to go check out. Definitely something to tap into. And then he also sells product that relates to that. I'm not too familiar with a lot of like this isn't something I'm like into or knowledgeable about. But still pretty cool and something I find interesting. It's got all this just different stuff relating to that, as well as more simplistic logo tees and whatnot. Again, I think you can do a better job of, because if you look, like the engagement is crazy high on all of the Cold War like information and like knowledge stuff. But then with the actual like garments that he sells, like the engagement's really bad. So there's definitely a balance there to build that audience and then be able to sell into them and keep them still engaged with like your product. But yeah, just really good example of that. Then I thought it'd be good to note a couple brands that still do that kind of mood board Pinterest aesthetic, if you will. This isn't anything new, but still something to be thinking about when executed well. So Sporting Rich, founded by Emily Oberg. You might remember her from like Complex and a lot of stuff like that. Her brand Sporting Rich, very simply, is kind of gathered towards that type of audience, more like high-end athleisure for women especially. And so they tap in for their brand just to a lot of old female like pop culture stuff, a lot of like vintage like 90s or 2000s graphics and like news and like culturally relevant figures. So yeah, just really smart to continue to build brand like that. One thing that I talk about a lot with these videos is the less you can make it about just your product, more about being like informative to the audience or entertaining or things of that nature. So doing less selling and more just informational, educational, and keeping things fun for your audience, not just constantly blasting them with product. Then when you go for the sell of whatever it is you're trying to sell, it makes it a lot easier, and they're already gonna be a lot more engaged. And yeah, just nurturing your audience like that is gonna be the best way to go about it. Another good example is this brand I found, Scenes New York. They're a smaller. They do a lot of like vintage reselling of soccer stuff in New York, but then also have like their own subline of clothes that they sell. I actually don't think that's one of their stuff. So I can find something. Yeah, they sell their own clothes. I can't really find anything. Here is some shorts they did. Okay. But again, similar concept. They do a lot of posts regarding, like we have Maradona right here. Just tapping in, nurturing with informational and cool old graphics and stuff that's really relevant to people that are big into soccer, which is obviously what their audience and who they're catering to. And then even for like their ads, they've tapped into that kind of vintage ad aesthetic, doubling down on that. So yeah, just think about being ways, especially if you're going to be a brand active on Instagram, which almost every new brand is going to be, active on Instagram and or TikTok. Some good ways to go about nurturing that audience and really trying to tap into what their common interests are, and then like really doubled down on the educational and entertainment side of that. And then just one last brand, or it's this Saturday's Football, again sticking with soccer just because I found a couple of good examples. They're a solely resell-ish, like vintage soccer kits brand slash business. So even if you're not like necessarily a brand, but more of like a vintage reseller or something like that, like a retailer, whatever it is, you can still be thinking about what the common interests are among your audience, and then nurturing them again with that similar type of concept. Going through the archives, finding just really interesting, unique, or just things that will hit a nostalgic side of their brain that they remember. Oh, that moment when that thing happened. They also have really good short form social content, something good to look into. But yeah, that's more or less all I had for today. Just wanted to go over some good examples of the archive pages that kind of blew up and how they translated that into successful brands. And I still think one thing to note with those brands, even though they built those really big audiences, they also still delivered very good product. Like if we look at Hidden New York, I think they have some exceptional product, very unique, very different, better than a lot of just normal brands that didn't build their audience and are solely focused on like product. So kudos to them because they've really done their thing and tapped into some very cool niches. Again, their product catalog and breadth is just so wide and vast, and just props to them. And obviously, they have such a wide audience still, even within that 3 million followers, that they are able to do that successfully. And then we have also, again, Osh, who's more tapped into like the very higher quality type of garments. So again, just be thinking about what the audience is that you're building, how you can cater to them and provide value to them, and then double down with the type of product that they would be most accustomed to, like a good product market fit, if you will. So yeah, that's all I've got. Again, loving all the feedback recently. Keep doing that if you can. Hit 500 subs yesterday, about to hit 600 today, so that's awesome. And yeah, drop a like, comment, subscribe, and until then, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.